For this craft, we're going to take the larger Easter eggs, not the jumbo, but the larger ones. The small ones are a little harder to work with, just because we're going to add some lettering in the end. You're going to need 6. We'll have the word Easter spelled out, and they're going to go on a pedestal. We want to paint these. You could go with white. I'm going with an off-white. We're going to make it look kind of marbleized. Some gold marbleized look to it, and then put it on a pedestal, put some letters on it, and you'll have a great little Easter decoration for your mantle or your table, any kind of centerpiece. Now, you could spray paint this if you wanted something smooth. I'm not using a paintbrush on this because we don't want line marks like you would get even if you're doing it like this. Those line marks aren't going to look very pretty when we go to make it look like marble or granite or whatever that rock is. So we're going to dab. I don't really care if it's, got a little texture to it as long as it's not lines. And then we'll let these completely dry. I put it on this skewer. It's amazingly a lot simple. I fought forever with the first one. Got paint everywhere. Dropped it on the floor. It was a disaster. Definitely skewers something being stuck in the bottom hole. And it makes it really handy for when you're letting them dry, because you can stick them in a jar like these. In fact, I'm going to show you one of these. Let's see here. You see how it has some texture? It's more like bumpy, rocky type texture versus the lines with the paintbrush. Now you could probably still use a paintbrush for this, and just kind of dab instead, or maybe some cotton balls. Let's see. But what I don't want is these lines like this, these lines, because we are trying to make it look more like a rock. Okay, now, yeah, dabbing with a brush doesn't do the same thing as a foam brush, so I would definitely suggest a foam brush, some sponge, a cotton ball, something. Anyways, I'm going to finish these up, let them dry, and we'll get to the next step tomorrow. Good morning, guys. So I do not have a gold paint for our marble or granite eggs, but I do have this yellow ochre, a deep yellow, a medium, and a burnt sienna. Now, if you have gold, great. If not, you can guess at it like me. According to Google, you can make, take a yellow, a gray, and a brown, and mix them in various amounts until you get the gold you would like. Now, if you don't have a brown, there are instructions on Google how to completely make just about any color, actually, with the 3 primaries. Actually, to make brown, you just mix the 3 primaries. So far we got this color, and that's actually not too bad for a gold, but I am going to go ahead and add some brown. If you have any milk lids or bottle lids, they might come in handy. Also will depend on what you use for your pedestal. If you have any of the cheap plastic napkin rings, those are perfect. If you don't, you can use a toilet paper roll. Cut it in half, depending on how tall you want your pedestal. I actually am using a clear gift wrap roll. It's a little bit smaller And I will be cutting mine at 1 3/4 inches. This is what it will look like when you add the bottom. Now, I added the bottom to mine because these are going to be pedestals. They're going to be sitting on something. This is cardboard, so it's not all that sturdy, and if it gets damp, obviously it's not going to last long. So this fits perfectly into these grooves. It also fits perfectly into these water bottle snap lids for the gallons, and you just like this. And it makes a perfect little stand, which we will use for the base of our pedestal. I have cut 1 3/4 inches for my length. I don't want my pedestal very tall. And we will be wrapping this in jute to give it a country look and adding a little bow to it as well. I'm kind of liking this version. I think it might be close enough to gold to do what I'm wanting. So I'm going to reach over here and turn my hot glue gun on so it is ready for when we attach the jute or twine, whatever you have. Jute's just basically twine, but it's a more of a yarn type twine, so it's softer. This is the jute I'll be using. I believe I got this at Walmart for a couple of dollars. I don't remember, it's been a while. And then I'll be using one of these, which I got at the Dollar Tree, for a bow that we will attach to the pedestal. So we are going to start on an egg. So I have already pre-painted these eggs. They're good and dry. And we want to keep that marble just gonna tap all over this thing until it is covered like you would like. Taking the edge now and dotting on that right there. Trying to get a little bit of that darker spot out. Although, granted, it does have dark versus light, so, you know, if you like the darker spots, leave them. I just have a little too much water on my brush, apparently, or sponge application, whatever you call it. Are these even considered a brush? Anyways, that's a little better. I'll just go in and pat this down all the way around. Until it's covered in this goldish spackle. Now, I do have an actual metallic gold, but don't have a whole lot of it. It's from a car model set, and it's very bright, shiny. And since granite isn't actually quite that bright and shiny, I decided to just try and do this. Plus, not a whole lot of people are just exactly going to have a metallic gold on hand. So I wanted to try this, version of doing it myself. Okay. Well, I think the idea here is to look like marble or granite. I'm not really sure if I'm loving this yet or not, because at this point, I'm not so certain it doesn't just look like an egg covered in. Anyways, we'll go with this for now. We'll finish up the other eggs later. I would suggest playing around with your color combination a little more than I did. Maybe, you know, what it looks like there. Obviously, well, it's pretty close, but anyways, just play around with it so you get the one you like. And then just dab away. Now I am going to put this back on my skewer to dry. I'm just sticking it in that little hole. Don't push too hard. I actually broke one last night and wound up having to super glue it back together because I didn't have any other big ones. I literally only had the 1 6-pack. So, okay. So here we go. Here's our golden marble granite egg. And if you know anything about granite, marble, I think this is supposed to be granite. I don't know. One of the rocks. Anyways, they're not smooth. The color pattern is blotchy and just random. So if it looks crazy, it's fine. Before it's all over with, it's going to look totally adorable. Okay, so I'm going to put my foam brush applicator in some water to rinse. I'm going to set this aside. Put this back up here to dry. And we are going to move on to our next step. We're going to do this. I went ahead and painted the bottom of this just because my lids are red and blue. And for mine, like I said, I used a slightly smaller tube than the toilet paper roll, but you can just as easily use the toilet paper roll. The egg looks just fine with it proportion wise. I went ahead, like I said, I've cut my paper roll to 1 3/4 and inserted it into this with some hot glue. You can use crafter's glue, super glue, whatever kind of glue you'd like. Now we are going to get ready to I use this to burn all the extra strings off, in case you're wondering. Now we're getting ready to hot glue. Where's my glue gun over here? To hot glue this jute onto our pedestal. Now, I like to start at the bottom and wrap. And I'm going to put just like a little bit of hot glue. I don't like to put a whole lot because I have an issue with hot glue strings and I really don't like to see them poking out. So we're going to, now this jute has several layers, so we're going to have to add a little bit more there to get that to stick down. Careful, don't burn your fingers. If you have the little heaty pads, that's great. If not, and you don't want to use your fingers, you can always use your popsicle stick or whatever you're using to mix your paint. And you're just going to wrap this. Now this is the bottom one, so I'm going to put several spots of the hot glue along the way, just so it doesn't slide. I'm going to get it right along the bottom there, as close as you can. Now, jute comes, you can get it in all kinds of sizes. This just happens to be the size I have on hand. And you're not going to have to hot glue every single strip. I do, like I said, want to get this bottom one really attached really well, so nothing slides as I go up. Okay, so we're back to our connection there. Oops. Make sure that's good and glued. And now we're just literally going to start twisting. You want to try your best, keep that pulled down. And now if you feel that you need to hot glue it as you go to keep that there, go right ahead. I'll probably add a little spot here and there just to be safe. I'm going to make sure it's completely pushed down against that bottom row though. We have a good solid connection there. We're just going to keep wrapping. All these little hairs that stick off here will burn off later. Don't worry. You do have to be a little careful when you're burning your excess strips. You obviously don't want to burn your jute. Also, if you get it too close, it will somewhat color your jute. Which that won't be a problem for this project because we're actually going to darken in the jute anyways. So as you come to your last strip around this, you're probably going to want to add a couple of different places of the hot glue. Because I have, like I said, I added the caps. You don't have to. If you did not add caps, you're not going to have to worry about filling in this gap. You're just going to continue to go up your your tube there. Okay, now for this little section around here, I'm going to use quite a bit of hot glue as I go. I don't want it sliding off in the hole, but I want the hole covered. And I'm hoping that adding these lids will kind of give it that bottom pedestal look. It'll show, you know, that the bottom's a little bigger than the, the stem or the pedestal stand, or whatever you call that. Anyways, I'm hoping the base will be a little bigger. It's not going to show a lot of difference because it's just not that big of a difference, but when it's all said and done, there should be a slight taper, which I am hoping will give me the look I would like. Ugh, that jute is itching. See how that's closed in the gap somewhat. Now we're going to continue to go up our tube. And like I said, make sure that's pressed down again. Okay guys, so I finished my eggs and I found a way that I think looks a little better, more realistic than the first egg I did. Now all I'm doing with this, I'm taking a really stiff, cheap, junky watercolor brush and I dipped it in and I'm just patting all over it and then going back and drawing it in. And it comes up with this pattern, unlike the first pattern, which was a little more smooth blotches. I think I actually like this look better. I'm going to see if I can fix this one. Anyways, that's another technique. I would definitely suggest if you have this cheap brush, do that. And literally you're just blotching it. You see the little lines there. And then that gets a little thick sometimes. So before it dries, you just take your other and pat over it. here we go. I will post a picture after they've all been completed. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and happy DIYing. Okay guys, so I've got this little guy completely wrapped, and if you can see the taper here. I've wrapped it all the way top, hot glued it off there. I'm going to make sure that this goes on the back side of the egg. I mean, not that it's totally noticeable, but it's a little noticeable. Now for the trick to get rid of all these unsightly hairs, we are going to take our lighter and just kind of go over it. And this is like really great for singeing those off. Get a little careful. You get too close, you'll get a little bit of a color change, but that's really no big deal when you're doing a farmhouse chic DIY, country chic, however you want to call them. And names for everything these days. Okay, that's a lot better on the cleanup. And I've already put this bow together and burn it last night. Now, the one thing I'll tell you about making these bows, I cut 6, obviously the same length, and I kept trying to start like here in the middle, and they wouldn't come out the same. So what I've found is you want to go down to this last like 1/4 of a section and start your bow there. Okay, and you're just gonna see how that is. Crisscross. Oop. I'm just gonna crisscross over like you would a shoe. Go around. Stick that to your loop. And now you can push that through. Get you some tweezers if you need to. Right, and then you're just gonna pull it tight. Try to make them all the same size if possible. So I'm going to compare there. And that actually turns out amazingly perfect the first time. My first one, this one, took me like 10 times. All right, so we're going to just tighten that knot down a little. We're going to do the same with the bow as we did the pedestal. And we're going to burn these off. Now, I don't really care that this is getting black, because I want a little bit of a contrast between this and this so it stands out a little more. We're actually going to put a little paint on it. One of the techniques I love, it kind of brings out the dimension in art, crafts, paintings, anything really, is like the de-stressing, antiquing, whatever you want to call it. Basically, we're going to kind of darken it in, shade it, whatever you want to call it there. I am going to use another sponge brush, and I'm going to take just a little bit of black. Just a tiny little bit of black here. Actually, yeah, I'm going to do black. I think. If not, I'll be redoing another bow and doing it with a darker brown. We'll see how this works. Again, since we're just kind of de-stressing or antiquing, whatever it is, we're going to kind of pad that off some, because I don't want it real dark. We're just going to take your bow and just like kind of go over it, just barely lightly brush it. You don't want to completely color this string. We're just kind of antiquing the string, and just, like I said, just kind of brush over it, and it'll give it a little more dimension there. should have waited to burn those since it looks like my sponge is pulling some more strings. So we'll just have to do a touch up on that. Okay, like I said, it doesn't have to be solid, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just wanting to make a little bit of a contrast so that it shows up a little bit better. I do believe I want a little bit more on mine. I'm going to kind of wipe that in because that was a little dark. Now I like the look of the distressed, antiqued shadows, whatever you want to call it. So we are actually going to go in and there again, just put it right on the edge there. You don't want it too thick, and we're just going to do that with the edge of our pedestal top and probably the bottom too. Now I'm doing this with a sponge. You might prefer one of the chip brushes or a stiff brush, you know, where you can just kind of flake it on. I'm just using the sponge because it's easy and it's handy since I've already been using sponges this morning. That's what I have out. So, you know, it doesn't like change it a whole lot, but it gives it a little bit of dimension and depth there. I'm not actually, I thought about it, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do the bottoms here. And there again, we're just going to brush. Ooh, there we go. Thought that was going to be too dark, but actually that looks pretty good. I like how that's turning out. It gives it, like I said, a little bit of a older look. And definitely a little bit of depth and dimension. Okay, I like that better. I think I'm going to darken the top a little to match it. Ooh, try not to go against your jute that you've just glued like I did. You might undo it. Okay. So here we go. Here's our pedestal. I don't know. I'm going to try on the back just in case. Do I want to put a little dimension in there? Ooh. I don't know, maybe. I think I do. Now, obviously, you're not going to do this if you've used a straight pedestal. Like I said, I added the bottle lids to mine, which kind of gave it a slightly bigger base and a taper. So, yeah. Yeah, I think I actually like that there. There we go. That's how I'm doing mine. Now we are literally just going to attach everything, and then we're going to add our lettering. Okay, so here's my back. I'm going to put my finger there so I see it. I'm going to center up the front. Let's go ahead and reburn off these excess right quick. Hopefully my fire alarm doesn't go off. I don't think I'm making that much smoke. But that'd be about my luck. Okay. And I'm going to do the same with this since it got a little fuzzy. Painting it. I'm just going to... Okay. Now, back. So front, center. We're going to just put a little bit of hot glue on the back of the bow. Ooh, that may be a little too much. I really don't want too much because I don't want the hot glue showing. Nobody wants the hot glue showing. And if you're like me, you really hate hot glue strings. They are very annoying and unattractive. And you want to figure out where you want to put this. I'm going to put it really close, closer to the top than the middle. That's how I want mine. You can see my hot glue a little. Maybe a smaller dab next time. Okay, so there's our pedestal. Now we're going to take our marbled granite egg and we're going to put letters on it. We're going to spell out Easter on each one. One letter per egg to spell out Easter. And I'm not undecided if I want to do it on here or wait till I've got it seated. I think I'll wait till I've got it seated. That way I can make sure it's perfectly centered. Now the connecting part of your egg, I am also going to put that in the back so it's not as visible. And what we're going to do for this is we're going to take our pedestal. And I like to make sure if it's going to drip, it drips to the inside. So I'm going to hold my pedestal at an angle as I go around. And this. Now this is my first one. I may decide next time to actually put it all on the inside. We'll see how badly it squishes out here. So we are lining our spot up to the back. And we're going to just seat our egg. We want to get it as straight as possible. And yes, you can see that hot glue. So I'm going to see if I can take some of that off really quickly before it all dries up and gets gooey, which is almost impossible with hot glue. It dries really quick. So instead, we are going to pull out the tweezers. I'm still using this little nail so I can kind of lift it because I really don't want to scratch the paint off and have to repaint it, because that means a lot of redone work. Oh, yeah, I definitely think the next one's going to have the glue more to the inside of the pedestal. Okay, so there's your egg. Now you can leave your eggs where they'll open. Maybe you want to put surprises in them. Oh, really? This would be even cuter if you had the wood eggs where there's no seam. I did try to sand this down before painting them, and it really did not work out well. In fact, it just kind of made it rough, and there's still a bevel. So we're just going to go with it. Like I said, it's a DIY. We're not paying $30 for it, and it's still going to be cute. And you can say that you made it. Okay, so we have our egg attached. We're going to pull out either some letter stickers or your paints. You can do it with a paint pen. You can do it with a permanent marker. I am just going to paint mine on. And if I can find the right brush. I want one that's fairly tapered and fairly small. And we're just going to, you can use whatever kind of lettering you want. I'm going to go kind of a loose, tight, casual lettering. And we're going to put an E. And you just figure where you want it. And you're going to want to somewhat align the rest of your egg lettering. Oh, that was terrible. Ugh. Ugh, my paint is sticking. It's not cooperating. I don't need that much at one time. Okay, let's try this again. I'm gonna have to fix my E a little bit here. This is not the brush I should be using, apparently. So yeah, permanent marker may be the better bet just because it's more like writing. Or even better if you have some really cute sticker letters. All I had was really large block letters, or I would have used a sticker. But they were just too big and they were not really what I wanted. I'm going to try this route. And guys, these eggs are 6 for $1, so if I totally ruin it, it's not a big deal. I can fix it with another one later. All DIYs are pretty much trial and error, or at least mine are. It's definitely not perfect. Although, it seems like they should be as long as they take. I want to make sure your brush bristles, I got that backwards, are not ones that want to stray. Mine seem to want to stray a little. So I've looked at it and seen where my little brushes stick out, and I'm avoiding those areas. Just using the tip. So I really don't want another issue where my letter decides to go off all crazy. Okay, so here we go. Here is my E, very first letter, and they will sit up on a mantle like this.